becoming so concerned, so anxious, uncertain about world events, what this future holds for us now, and our children and our families. So we must prepare. We must prepare ourselves for whatever is to come, even if it be martyrdom,
damn
for this kind of persecution. But how do we do this? How do we prepare ourselves? Well, first we must recognize that we are a weak generation. We do not live up to the great heroes and saints of the past. Such is the deception of our times. Our culture, even our humanity, is being deformed. So deformed, it's difficult for us to recognize just how far we fall short of the lives of Christians of the past. So let us not try to do extraordinary ascetical things. Let us try to live out the simplicity of the Christian faith. This is our calling in this generation, and it will be enough. It will be enough if we can live truly just Christian lives. For this will be hard enough for us in this day. Let us try to repent of our sins. Let us try to pray, to go to church, to receive Holy Communion, to confess. Let us try to forgive one another, to have love in our hearts. And when we see anger and hatred and all those passions, let us turn to God. Let us truly repent and root out these sins. This is our calling, to live out the simplicity of the gospel. In this age, it is so easy for us to be deceived, to fall into deception. This is an age of deception. There's so many lies, so much confusion, so much that is so far from the truth of God. Let us always remember the things of this world are momentary. Our lives are like a blink of an eye. The struggles, the pains, the difficulties that this world throws us, the things that God permits us to endure, are so short-lived. Like St. Stephen, let us set our vision on the things that are eternal.
Jesus, are you
the kingdom of God, the glory of God. And if we can find the strength to live a simple Christian life, to live out the life of the gospel, we will find in the Holy Spirit hope that will bring us peace. And this peace of Christ is something we must protect, hold on to as a precious thing. Nurture it with this simple Christian life. We are living in a world where rapidly, in an accelerating way, the things that we believe will not only be alien, there will be hostility, open hostility to the Christian faith. We're seeing it already. The things in Californian schools, the things that the government and local government are imposing on churches in California and Canada. These things are happening now. Do not be afraid.
Come on, whoremonger.
Lose our peace. Let us not be afraid. Christ is with us. Christ is the victor in all things. He has overcome death. He has overcome the devil. He is risen. Our humanity is risen, and we will rise again. Judgment is coming. Let us prepare for that judgment. Let us fear the judgment of God, not the things, the temporal, momentary things of this world. And in this way, like St. Stephen, whatever our accusers say, whatever persecution may arise, we may truly find that peace by setting our vision on the kingdom of God.
Leftist regimes trying to make a so-called utopia where everything is free and equal, but that's not how it turned out. No, there was no freedom of press or speech. All the artwork and everything written or said about the regime had to be complimentary. Well, it was propaganda, I tell you. You couldn't be armed, so you couldn't fight back. You couldn't oppose or disagree with them, or you'd be shipped off to the gulag to face torture and death. You dare not criticize the dear leader. No, that wasn't allowed. The only way you could speak about those dictators was with praise. I tell you, it was a nightmare. Imagine if your own mother was shipped off to some gulag and you weren't even allowed to complain about it. Not only that, but you had to be thankful. How many more lives must communism take?
Welcome to heaven, Joe.
Oh, God!
That's right, I know. Listen, Jeffrey, go ahead and put him through orientation.
Oh, God, please don't make me do that. I hate orientation.
Jeffrey.
Okay. Right this way, Joe. Just follow this street of gold here to your new mansion.
My mansion?
Yep. Everyone gets a mansion in heaven because everything is totally free and equal here. Don't get too used to your mansion, though. You won't be spending much time there.
Mama, you here?
God, I can't do this. Could you help me out with this part, please?
Jeffrey, you wuss.
I've been so looking forward to finally seeing Mama again.
Oh? Well, I think that could be arranged. We just had these new LG widescreens installed. Whenever you want to see your mother, just turn it to channel 6.
Mama? Is that you?
Kinda caught her at a bad time, Joe. Maybe you'll recognize her when her skin grows back, but you gotta time it just right because it will get burned off again pretty quickly.
Champagne?
But she was a believer.
Not exactly. She secretly did not believe, actually, that I created the universe, so I shipped her off to hell to be tortured forever.
Mama?
Joe, remember that you're in heaven now, and heaven is a happy place. So I'm gonna need you to turn that frown upside down.
But Mama?
Turn that frown upside down.
But Mama?
Joe, I'm sensing that you have some choice words for me, sort of on the tip of your tongue, and I'd like to remind you that blasphemy is still a big no-no.
Oh, no.
No criticizing, no back talk, and certainly no insulting your creator, etc.
Where's the rest of my family?
I'm afraid that since you were a bit overbearing about your religion, they were kind of afraid to tell you that they weren't actually believers.
Well, that's not entirely accurate, Jeffrey. Some were believers, but they got the denomination wrong.
Well, at least they're not alone, Joe. There's 100 billion people in hell. Not nearly that many up here.
Hey, if you want to make an omelet, you gotta break some eggs. The wants of the few outweigh the needs of the many, right?
What about little Jack? And Grandma Sue? And Aunt Betsy?
Ah, there they are.
Well, where's Uncle Mike? That son of a bitch molested me when I was little.
Hey, Uncle Mike.
Joe. So good seeing you again. You're here?
Yeah, Uncle Mike repented right before he died, so you two get to spend eternity together.
Speaking of which, be sure to be up bright and early for worship.
Worship?
Yep, that's what you're going to be doing from now on. You did enjoy church, right?
Jeffrey, take it easy or you're gonna overwhelm him with all this good news.
Worship?
Well, obviously you're gonna wanna thank me, right? Well, you get to do that forever and ever. Not only did I send all those people who believed the wrong things about me, or who criticized me, off to be tortured, but I saved your old Uncle Mike here.
And Mike sure does know how to be a spineless, groveling sycophant who does nothing but constantly pay God compliments.
Yep. After all, that's why I created you primitive primates in the first place, so that you could have the honor of kneeling before me and paying me compliments forever. I mean, what else would the most intelligent mind in existence want besides constant groveling?
Doesn't that sound so much more meaningful than those wicked, nihilistic atheists who wanted you to live your life to the fullest because they believed it was the only life you had?
Exactly, Jeffrey. But now, you get to spend eternity kissing my ass.
So meaningful!
Part of this video was inspired by Seth Andrews and Matt Dillahunty. Links in the description below. It is important to listen to the reasons people have for deconverting.
This motherfucker's only postponing the inevitable.
Is the incompatibility.
He's gotta lose that whore.
Hell. If heaven exists, how could hell exist? How could someone be happy in heaven knowing that someone they dearly love is being tortured in hell? If in heaven your mind is changed so drastically that it would no longer bother you, then you are no longer you. The rest of the video was inspired by my own reactions of that tiresome association to Stalin, Mao, and Pol Pot just for being an atheist, even though I and most other atheists adamantly disagree with what those dictators did. And even though the people who associate atheists with those dictators are themselves exuberant supporters of a dictator who must be praised, who restricts freedoms, and who tortures dissidents, I can reject the very basis of dictatorships, but the fundamentalist Abrahamic theist cannot, because for them, such an existence is the ultimate goal.
I fucked his hole! Poor sport bitch quitting. Yep, he would have lost his whore. I fucked that last guy up.
We are Myth Vision. Welcome to Myth Vision Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm super excited.
Get that bitch out of here.
With Dr. Bart Ehrman. Dr. Ehrman, welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me again.
Thank you. I'm sorry that we did a deep dive into like extremely meticulous.
That fucking pisses me off. I'm gonna lose that.
Really, there wasn't any prep time, of course, for that kind of work. And
it's okay.
These
what I do for a living.
Right. I know you'll do anything, but it's like these were donor questions. Don't shoot the messenger, please.
Yeah, no, fine. Yeah, fine. You ask me anything you want. I'll even tell you my shoe size.
Dr. Bart D. Ehrman is the James A. Gray Distinguished Professor at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
Dumbass.
He came to UNC in 1988. After 4 years of teaching at Rutgers University at UNC, he has served as both the Director of Graduate Studies and the Chair of the Department of Religious Studies, a graduate of Wheaton College, Illinois. Bart received both his Master's of Divinity and PhD from Princeton Theological Seminary, where his 1985 doctoral dissertation was awarded magna cum laude. Since then, he has published extensively in the fields of New Testament and early Christianity, having written or edited 26 books, numerous scholarly articles, and dozens of book reviews. Among his most recent books are Greek-English edition of the Apostolic Fathers for the Loeb Classical Library, and that's the Harvard University Press, a scholarly monograph on the use of literary forgery and dozens of book reviews. Among his most recent books are Greek-English edition of the Apostolic Fathers for the Loeb Classical Library, and that's the Harvard University Press, a scholarly monograph on the use of literary forgery in early Christianity, Oxford University.
You're gonna lose one of those nights.
4 New York Times bestsellers.
Dumbass.
You really have to get these books. If you have not read this stuff, it will shock you if you aren't acquainted with textual criticism stuff. So, Misquoting Jesus, I reread that the other day. You can't pass this book up, I'm telling you. God's Problem, Jesus Interrupted, and Forged. And he has the layperson's edition, which really I needed, and then there's forgery, counter-forgery, which is more complex for scholars who want to think deep. Real quick, before we actually start, I want everybody to go to Amazon or go to bartdehrman.com, buy the books, check the books out. That's how you can help him, support what he's doing, to continue his research, and to bring these ideas to the forefront. Because too often in America, I see the evangelical world is really dominating this topic, and I think more people need to be educated on it. I'm not a basher, no chip on my shoulder, but I found to love the Bible that much more knowing what it's actually doing and the humanity behind it than the mystical, magical,
Oh my God.
supernatural show. And that's just my personal opinion. Ladies and gentlemen, also, I release all this content early on Patreon. Help support us. Many scholars, Dr. Ronald Hindall on the dating of the Bible, even science about the brain. You know, Dr. Jason Staples recently interviewed him on the idea of Israel. We got lost in the weeds in the New Testament, even though his book mainly focuses on the Old. Dr. Dennis McDonald and Dr. Price, they had a discussion/debate over the historical Jesus, and on and on and on.
Suck
I'm
my
shortly
dick.
plugging that to say, help support us here at Myth Vision. Dr. Bart Ehrman.
Hello.
Yeah, thank you for being patient through that. I guess we'll jump straight into the questions. But
Yeah.
did you want to make a comment about our last show real quick?
It was great. It was great fun. Yeah. Did some Greek. How often does that happen on a podcast?
You did so well in terms of trying to make it simple for the audience, you know?
Well, it's complicated because, you have to you got to kind of know the Greek in order to understand the grammatical arguments. And a lot of people use Greek without really knowing it. I mean, we've all had that experience of the pastor saying, "Oh, the Greek word means this," and it goes on, and half the time he doesn't really know. It's just like he read that someplace, but it's good. I mean, it's good that the pastors do go to the Greek, and it really does help. But it's a difficult language,
Damn.
and it's not easy to explain unless you know something about it. So.
Well, especially when you're hip firing too. Some of this stuff is simple. It takes time for you to really prep for, and I apologize for no prep.
Son
I
of a
didn't really
bitch.
give you anything to prep with, and you were going
It's fine.
in
It's
the
fine.
deep end. So, all right, first question, Dr. Ehrman. How do you explain Paul's apparent lack of knowledge about Jesus' life and teachings in his epistles? A favorite mythicist talking.
Oh, this guy fucked up. He could have taken my. Why?
On divorce
What a
compared to what Jesus
dumbass.
said on the subject in the Gospels. Are the Greek passages that could be referencing Jesus ambiguous, e.g., James, the brother of the Lord, as biological or mystical? Now, what do you think about the life of Jesus? Don't knowing the life of Jesus and Paul, though, pretty much.
Well, Paul does know about the life of Jesus. I mean, he quotes him, and he tells us some things, and so it's a very, very interesting issue, but it has nothing to do with whether Jesus existed or not.
Right.
Okay, okay. So, how often does Paul mention the Emperor Nero? Oh, well, he must not have existed then.
Right.
So, right. So, Paul, but it's an interesting question. Apart from that, it's a very, very interesting question because Paul does not say much about the life of Jesus. He talks a lot about Jesus' death and resurrection. He says a lot about the crucifixion, a lot about the resurrection. But by the way, he wouldn't be able to be crucified if he didn't exist.
Right.
So, just to point out.
That's actually one of the biggest, for me personally, that's one of the biggest ad hoc props to me is the idea that he was crucified in the heavens. I'm not saying that's not possible, but it doesn't seem to make the most sense for me. It's like,
where do they get this from? Seriously, how many ancient records talk about anyone being crucified in heaven? I can tell you how many. 0. So why is it that's the likely thing that happened with Jesus? He was crucified in the heavens. What? That's the most probable thing, as opposed to the thousands and thousands of people who got crucified in the ancient world, hundreds and hundreds in Jesus' day in Palestine. Come on.
You actually point this out that, and I think one of the things that you do that's balanced is you say, well, no, there is a strange Christology in Paul about a pre-existent angelic, Christ coming down, but they looked at the guy and applied it to this person, mythologized the guy. So
I know. Yes. Okay. So let's
next question.
No. Let's deal with this question because it's a really important question. So,
Yes.
Quite apart from the mythicist thing, which I'm just sorry. It's just okay.
We'll play patty cakes all night long.
Apart from that, Paul does tell us some things, and he doesn't tell us a lot of things, and it's an interesting historical question why. So you can actually make a fairly quick list of the things Paul tells us about the historical Jesus, by which I mean between the time Jesus was born and the time he died. So the actual life period, apart from what he's doing now in heaven or what he was doing before, but like the life. So Paul tells us he was born of a woman, which is not all that useful because that's how most of us were born. But he does say that in Galatians 4:4, and I think he's probably saying that precisely because people are saying things like he was a divine being and wasn't really. And he said no, he's born of a woman. He says that he was Jewish. He says that he had brothers. He mentions his brothers on several occasions, and he names James as one of his brothers, whom Paul knows as Jesus' brother. He mentions the 12, which apparently means the 12 apostles. He says that Jesus ministered principally to Jews. He says that Jesus was crucified and all that. He says that he was killed by the Jews. By which he means the Jews were responsible, the Jewish leaders were responsible for Jesus' death. He quotes several sayings of Jesus. His saying that you shouldn't get divorced, Paul quotes and attributes it to the Lord. And he said, which is his common title for Jesus, Kurios, the Lord. And he says that Jesus taught, he quotes Jesus, that you're supposed to pay the ones who are ministering to you. And so a workman is worthy of his hire, quotes that saying. And he quotes the extended discussion of Jesus at the Last Supper, where Jesus distributes the bread and the wine and says, this is my body given for you, and this is the cup of my blood. And so he quotes him on those occasions. And so it's a puzzle why he doesn't say more. And there are a variety of options. One option is that he just, he had no occasion to say anything more. He's writing these letters. I think people forget, or people never think about it, that these are actually pieces of personal correspondence. Paul is writing to people who are having issues. 6 of his 7 letters are directed to the 7 letters that everybody agrees he wrote. There are 13 letters attributed to him in the New Testament, but just about everybody agrees there's 7 of them he really did write. And then 6 of those 7 are sent to churches that he had founded and that he felt responsible for, and they were having problems, and so he's writing to address their problems. And so he's not writing a life of Jesus. He's not writing a gospel. it's like, I've probably written I don't know 50 emails over the last couple of days, and I don't think I've mentioned anything about Jesus. And so it doesn't mean it's just because that's not why I was writing the email. It doesn't mean I don't know anything about Jesus. It just means that maybe that these are, because they're called occasional letters, meaning they're written for particular occasions, that he wrote them, and he's just addressing those occasions. Another option is that he just really didn't care that much about the historical Jesus, but he really cared, like what he did. He's just not that interested in his baptism or his healing.
Stupid!
It's just not what he's interested in, his death and resurrection, because that brings salvation. So that's what he talks about. Another option is he just doesn't know anything, doesn't know much about the historical Jesus. That would be a little bit weird, because he knows.
What a moron!
He knew Cephas, Jesus' primary disciple. He knew him personally, and he knew James, Jesus' brother, knows him personally. And this is really Jesus' brother. This is not some the mythicists who come up with these weird ideas about who this is. It is Jesus' brother, and if you just read it, it's just like there's no doubt about that.
Right.
I can explain that if anybody wants. I mean, I can explain why.
You're good, because I've got too many questions.
Okay, I'm going on this one, but it's a good one. So those are the options. Okay, go ahead. I'll be sure.
That was extremely well said. I do appreciate it, and I definitely side with that. How old are the earliest reasonably complete manuscripts of each of the four Gospels? Is it true the older the manuscripts, the greater the number of variants, to the point some passages may never correctly be ascertained, if you will, by scholars? When do you date the Muratorian fragment? So there's multiple questions into that, but is it true that the older, the more difficult variation?
It's a really interesting. It's an interesting situation that we have, and a complicated one. For the Gospels, the earliest fragment we have of anything probably it's much debated. They're hard. It's hard to date manuscripts, because they. You usually don't carve and 14 date them, because to do that you've got to destroy part of the manuscript. You don't want to do that. So especially if it's a little fragment. But so usually what they do is they date it on the basis of handwriting analysis. So there's an entire field of study, paleography, where people are trained. They're experts in dating manuscripts, Latin, Greek, Coptic manuscripts on the basis of handwriting. The earliest fragment probably dates to sometime in the early 2nd century.
That's going to fucking piss me off if I lose this game.
It's a little fragment from the trial of Jesus before Pilate in John chapter 18. So that's the earliest. The earliest kind of largely fragmentary, like multiple chapters for the Gospels, is around the year 200. And so maybe 120, 140 years after the Gospels have been written, we have some fragmentary manuscripts. The first complete, like the full thing, like Matthew to John, the whole thing, is from about 360 CE, so about 300 years later.
Questions?
Okay, I'm going on this one, but it's a good one. So those are the options. Okay, go ahead. I'll be sure.
That was extremely well said. I do appreciate it, and I definitely side with that. How old are the earliest reasonably complete manuscripts of each of the four Gospels? Is it true the older the manuscripts, the greater the number of variants, to the point some passages may never correctly be ascertained, if you will, by scholars? When do you date the Muratorian fragment? So there's multiple questions into that, but is it true that the older, the more difficult variation?
It's a really interesting. It's an interesting situation that we have, and a complicated one. For the Gospels, the earliest fragment we have of anything probably it's much debated. They're hard. It's hard to date manuscripts, because they. You usually don't carve and 14 date them, because to do that you've got to destroy part of the manuscript. You don't want to do that. So especially if it's a little fragment. But so usually what they do is they date it on the basis of handwriting analysis. So there's an entire field of study, paleography, where people are trained. They're experts in dating manuscripts, Latin, Greek, Coptic manuscripts on the basis of handwriting. The earliest fragment probably dates to sometime in the early 2nd century. It's just a little piece the size of a credit card. That's a little fragment from the trial of Jesus before Pilate in John chapter 18. So that's the earliest. The earliest kind of largely fragmentary, like multiple chapters for the Gospels, is around the year 200. And so maybe 120, 140 years after the Gospels have been written, we have some fragmentary manuscripts. The first complete, like the full thing, like Matthew to John, the whole thing, is from about 360 CE, so about 300 years later. Scholars who want to know what the original text said, like what did Matthew really write, of course, are inclined to look at the earliest manuscripts, because the earliest manuscripts are, you don't have as many good ones. So yeah, those are the options. Okay, yeah, go ahead. I'll be sure.
That was extremely well said. I do appreciate it, and I definitely side with that. Okay. How old are the earliest reasonably complete manuscripts of each of the four Gospels? Is it true the oldest? The older the manuscripts, the greater the number of variants, to the point some passages may never correctly be ascertained, if you will, by scholars. When do you date the Muratorian fragment? So there's multiple questions into that, but is it true that the older, the more difficult variation?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting situation that we have, and a complicated one. For the Gospels, the earliest fragment we have of anything, probably it's much debated. They're hard. It's hard to date manuscripts, because you usually don't carve and 14 date them, because to do that you've got to destroy part of the manuscript. You don't want to do that. So especially if it's a little fragment. But so usually what they do is they date it on the basis of handwriting analysis. So there's an entire field of study, paleography, where people are trained. They're experts in dating manuscripts, Latin, Greek, Coptic manuscripts on the basis of the handwriting. So the earliest fragment probably dates to sometime in the early 2nd century. It's just a little piece the size of a credit card. That's a little fragment from the trial of Jesus before Pilate in John chapter 18. So that's the earliest. The earliest kind of largely fragmentary, like multiple chapters for the Gospels, is around the year 200. And so maybe 120, 140 years after the Gospels have been written, we have some fragmentary manuscripts. The first complete, like the full thing, like Matthew to John, the whole thing, is from about 360 CE, so about 300 years later. Scholars who want to know what the original text said, like what did Matthew really write, of course, are inclined to look at the earliest manuscripts, because the earliest manuscripts are, you don't have as many scribes who might make mistakes en route. So the earlier the manuscript, the fewer chances for scribes to mess it up. So that's definitely what scholars want to do, is look at the earlier stuff. But there is this other problem this person mentions, which is that the earliest scribes were not trained to be scribes. These were not like professional scribes. Back into the days before Kinko's, you had to have scribes trained to copy, and trained scribes took years to be trained. And the people writing these manuscripts, they just happened to be the Christian in the church who could write. Most people couldn't. And so, Joe Schwartz over here, he can write. Okay, yeah, copy this manuscript for it. And so he wasn't trained. And so often they would make mistakes, or they didn't think it was the Bible they were copying. They're just copying one of Paul's letters here, And so they weren't like that intent on making sure they didn't change a single letter. They changed a lot of letters and changed a lot of words. And so the task of textual criticism is figuring out how to get behind all of these mistakes to the original text and the text the author wrote, as much as you can. And the general thought is we're pretty close in almost every instance. I mean, we're pretty close probably, but the question is absolutely right. There are passages we just don't know. And the way we know we don't know is because scholars disagree. Is it worded this way or is it worded that way? Yeah, it's kind of a big difference. There aren't millions of passages like that, but there are dozens, hundreds probably, and hundreds. And they matter.
When do you get the Muratorian fragment, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so the Muratorian fragment is not a copy of the New Testament. It is a list of the books that this anonymous author thought belonged in the New Testament. So he's telling you it's our first list of, what are the Gospels? Which epistles are, and so it's a list of books. It's Latin. It's from the Middle Ages. It's terrible Latin, ungrammatical Latin. It's hard to read. But it is normally dated to have been originally written in Greek in the around the 180s,
March
2nd century. So it'd be our earliest list of books. It includes our four Gospels, and it includes a lot of what we ended up with the New Testament. There are scholars who have argued, 20, 30 years ago, started arguing that in fact it's from the 4th century, and most of us don't buy that. most of us think is actually late 2nd century.
Interesting. Thank you so much. What criteria are used to determine which of Paul's epistles are authentic? If you don't mind just pointing out some of the criteria, and we'll just move forward.
Well, we have these 13 that are said to be written by Paul, plus some outside the New Testament. We have 3 Corinthians, for example. We have the letter to the Laodiceans. We have these other letters that claim to be written by Paul also, and so you have to figure out, well, did Paul write it or not? And so the basic idea is that we know that people were forging things in Paul's name because we have these things that everybody thinks were forged. And so the question, did any non-Pauline letters claiming to be Paul get into the New Testament? And the normal criteria are that there are a core of letters that have the same kind of writing style. They use the same kind of vocabulary. They have very similar theological ideas, and they seem to be well situated in the middle of the 1st century in terms of what the kind of historical situation they're presupposing.
You
And
busted.
there are other letters that seem to use a different writing style and different vocabulary, different theology. They seem to be presupposing a later situation.
I smell a
And
checkmate
so
for your
if
ass.
you're in that latter group, people say, well, it's not cohering with this group. It looks like it's
Poor
all
sport bitch went in
coherent.
front of the
And
game.
so those are the criteria. And so you have the 7, they're called undisputed
I
Pauline
fucked his
epistles.
hole!
Pauline by somebody claiming to be Paul who's not.
And I know there's so much more that, it goes deep in his books. That's obviously it's more complex than that in terms of actually doing the work. But
Yeah, doing the work is tricky. Trying to figure out Greek writing style, you compare. But if you read Mark Twain and you read James Joyce, you're not reading the same guy, right? So you do that with ancient writings too, not just the New Testament, but this is just something that historians do. They compare writings for writing style, and you especially look for things that people don't think about when they write. People have certain kind of ways they talk that they don't think it's just how they talk. And if you get people talking in 2 different ways, that probably tells you something.
Thank you, Dr. Ehrman. Why do you believe the Gospel of John is stitched together from 4 other documents, and that 2 Corinthians is composed of at least 2 other letters? Are there other New Testament books that appear to be composed in a similar fashion?
I would say those 2 instances are different from one another. John, the Gospel of John does appear to have used certain sources of information. So, in other words, whoever wrote the Gospel of John didn't sit down one day and make up a 21-chapter story about Jesus. Right. He's heard things, he's read things, and he's putting together what he has. And it looks like some of the things that he has are written sources, and you can tell for a variety of reasons that. Including some internal inconsistencies, where he'll say something, and then the next chapter he'll say something else, and it doesn't work, right? And so one explanation for that is that he's got several written sources and put them together. I wouldn't limit it to 4. I mean, the prologue, the first 18 verses comes from some other source, probably, where the Word was God. In the beginning is the Word was with God, the Word was God. And he's got a source that gives him his miracles that are called signs. He's got 7 signs in this gospel. He's got discourses that seem to come from a different source. And so all of these things end up being put together. Originally, probably John did not have chapter 21, which is the final chapter. It includes, of course, some of Jesus' resurrection appearances. But it looks like originally it ended with chapter 20, verse 31, and that 21 was tacked on later. Which makes things very, very interesting. There's, of course, complicated arguments to sustain that, but they're pretty convincing to most critical scholars. So that's more like 2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians does look like it's made up of, almost all critical scholars agree that 2 Corinthians is made up of two letters. That chapters 10 through 13 is one letter, and chapters 1 through 9 is a separate letter. And to make things especially confusing, it looks like in terms of chronology, what is now chapters 10 through 13 was the first of the 2 letters to be written. And some of us think there are actually 5 letters in 1 Corinthians, in 2 Corinthians, 5 letters that have been spliced together. And you'd have to look at the arguments to see if you find them convincing or not. But I didn't come up with this. I mean, this has been around for a long time, and I find the arguments convincing. But what it means is that somebody probably in Corinth had some of Paul's letters and wanted to come up, with the greatest hits album. It's because he scissors and pasted them together into what we now have 2 Corinthians. So that's a little one was tacked on later, which makes things very, very interesting. There's, of course, complicated arguments to sustain that, but they're pretty convincing to most critical scholars. So that's more like 2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians does look like it's made up of almost all critical scholars agree that 2 Corinthians is made up of two letters. That chapters 10 through 13 is one letter, and chapters 1 through 9 is a separate letter. And to make things especially confusing, it looks like in terms of chronology, what is now chapters 10 through 13 was the first of the 2 letters to be written.
Jesus Christ.
And so, some of us think there are actually 5 letters in 1 Corinthians, in 2 Corinthians, 5 letters that have been stitched together. And you have to look at the arguments to see if you find them convincing or not. But I didn't come up with this. I mean, this has been around for a long time, and I find the arguments convincing. But what it means is that somebody, probably in Corinth, had some of Paul's letters and wanted to come up, with the greatest hits album. So he scissors and pasted them together into what we now have 2 Corinthians. So that's a little bit different from what happened with John, because John's using sources, and 2 Corinthians is different letters of Paul that they're put together.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ehrman. That was well said. What do you consider the greatest manuscript discovery since the 1800s? Everyone knows about the discovery of the Gospel of Judas, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and Nag Hammadi Library. However, the 19th century saw the discovery, and I'm going to butcher this, the Chechendorf of the Codex Sinaiticus at the Mount Catherine Monastery. In addition, there were the discoveries of the Gospel and Apocalypse of Peter, as well as the Didache, if you will. Which of these do you consider most important, if you will?
It depends. They're all really important for different things. Right. And so it depends what you're interested in. If you're interested in the history of Judaism in the days of Jesus, the most significant discovery was the Dead Sea Scrolls. If you're interested in how Jesus was understood by early Christians in a variety of ways, the most important discovery was the Nag Hammadi Library. If you're interested in what the words of the New Testament originally were, then probably the discovery of Codex Sinaiticus or Codex Vaticanus in the 19th century, or the discovery of the papyri. So really, it just depends what you're interested in. And since people are interested in different things, it's impossible to say which one of these things is the most important.
Too heavy of a question.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. What is your opinion about the Testimonium Flavianum? Flavianum. In Josephus' Antiquities of the Jews, the paragraph that talks about Jesus, is it authentic or an insertion? Would you take partial interpolation, whole interpolation? What's your personal preference?
You're fixing to get a dick
this is the passage in Josephus was this first century Jewish historian, just for background for everybody, who wrote a number of books, including a book called The Antiquities of the Jews, which is a history of the Jewish people from Adam and Eve up to his own day. It's quite interesting. And so in Book 18, he mentions Jesus twice in this 20-volume book, and once in chapter 20, once in book 20, and once in book 18. In book 18, there's actually a full paragraph where he says some things of substance about how Jesus had that he was a speaker of great things, and he did great deeds, and he had followers, both Jews and Greeks, and the Jewish leaders were upset with him and handed him over, and he was crucified. And so it supports what the Gospels basically say, but it's just a brief paragraph. The thing is, that paragraph contains some statements that a non-believer in Jesus almost certainly would not say, such as he was the Messiah and he was raised from the dead according to the prophets. Yeah, probably not by Josephus. And so the question is the whole thing like just stuck in there, an interpolation from some other source, or is there actually an original thing there that scribe added a couple lines to? And I think the best evidence is that it actually was there, and the scribes just added a few lines to wamp it up a bit. His writings were preserved by Christians in the Middle Ages, not by Jews, because Jews always considered him as a turncoat, because they saw him as a traitor for what happened during the Jewish uprising that ended with the destruction of Jerusalem in the year 70. And so they didn't copy his writing. So I think Christian scribes was
stupid. Man, these people are stupid. Two people losing their whores at the same time. What a bunch of morons. Dumbasses. Man, two people in a row lost their whores stupidly. What a bunch of morons!
Funny how I blind myself. I never knew.
I'm fucking pissed. Ho!
I was sometimes
Okay, move where I put the black ass for stolen even though you are white.
afraid I tell myself, what good do you do? Convince myself.
Okay, where's my fucking picture?
Don't you forget.
I actually get pissed off.
It never
Come on, move,
how
bitch. You stupid motherfucker. You stupid idiot. 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 Okay. He's getting the thumbs down, and I'm reporting his black ass for stolen.
hours I need more hours with you. You spend the weekend getting even. We spend the late nights making things right between us. But now it's all good, babe. All the bad good, babe. Oh, pay me close. 'Cause girls like you on roller bikes like me to sundown when I come through. I need a girl like you, yeah, yeah. Girls like you love fun, yeah. Need to.
Yeah, I voted him as poor sport. Poor sport, bitch. Shit. Please tell me this guy's not gonna be stupid. This is relaxing. With a spitty flip. Go ahead and take that damn rook. Go ahead and ear my rook. I'll take that whore out for a poison dinner. Come on! And now back to our regularly scheduled ass fucking. Suck my dick, whore. You moron! Ah, fuck his hole! What a moron! I'll report your black ass for stalling, even though because you are black. You moved just in time. I was fixing to report your black ass. Now I'm gonna get an ear his rook.
I'm coming.
Suck my dick.
You're making me dance inside.
Ooh. Hello, dumbass. Man, fuck this shit, goddammit, motherfucker. Fuck this shit. Fuck this shit.
Your love is
Oh, I fucked up. Get that whore out of here.
I know it's not easy. Your heart is aching, but so is mine. But so is mine. Gonna tell you why. For so long I've been thinking. I can live a life.
Dumbass.
Can live a lie. They say true love lasts forever. If we want it, there will be waiting a second chance. With people now, we need time to learn, time to understand. Got me wrong, soft is so strong. Cruising for bruising my baby.
You dumbass. Ha 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 ha.
Don't stop, 'cause it's better now when I still love you. Don't say goodbye. Don't say goodbye.
Oh, I'm fucked up.
True love lasts forever. If we want it, there will be waiting a second chance. With people now, we need time to learn, time to understand. Got me wrong, soft is so strong. We were cruising for bruising my baby. A second chance. With people now, we need time to learn, time to understand. Got me wrong, soft is so strong. We were cruising for bruising. For so long.
Man, I outsmarted this cat too. My dick is getting hard. I thought of me with my long big arms outsmarting these people, beating these people up. I'd move that fucking pawn down here. Get ready to move that pawn down here.
Say hello to the girl that I am. You're gonna have to see.
Move or I'll put your black ass for stalling.
I need to make mistakes just to learn who I am. And I don't wanna be so damn protected.
He tried to bring his whore down to my grill to put the heat on me, and he ended up losing his whore for free. What? The price of work. Yeah, and I'm gonna thumbs down him. Man, this guy's butt hurt. Move the pawn down here. At least we swap for swap. Then we put it. Maybe the point his black ass was cheating.
I can't help the way I feel, but my life has been so overprotected.
Ah, fuck his hole! Man, that'd be the shit if we get that guy.
I don't need nobody telling me just what
Ah, dick is getting hard.
I'm gonna do about my destiny. I say no, nobody telling me just what I'm gonna do. I'm so fed up with people telling me to be someone else but me. What am I to do with my life? Find it out. How am I supposed to know what's right?
Oh, I foresee boy, your bishop getting fucked up the butt.
Can't help the way I
That should take some serious drastic measures to say that damn bishop. You, my dear sir, I've got an ass fucking on your feature. Stupid bitch. Yep, you grew a brain. I can't believe that horse shit.
They'll fall to pieces, so we watch them grow into straight and a pretty face.
Suck my dick.
I don't know. Clutching to my lipstick traces, watch them go. Make mistake number three.
Suck my dick.
Mistake number three. Make mistake number three. Mistake number three.
I think I'm gonna get my butt fucked this game.
That's what children go drag into a conversation they can hold. It's so sad, but it prepares them for the more. And they
Come on, dickhole. You'll freaking get your tail screwed, dickhole. Choose recipes you want to lose. That damn whore. That rook. You will lose one of those pieces. Do you understand me? Dickhole. Fucking moron.
Send them on their own. They will fall to pieces. So we watch them grow. No, no. And make mistake number three. Mistake number three. And make mistake number three. Mistake number three. Make mistake number. Make mistake number. Mistake
Oh, I love this song.
Friday night, it was late, I was walking you home. We got down to the
This song makes me cry.
But it turned out right. How to tell you, girl? I wanna build my world around you. Tell you that it's true. Wanna make you understand. I'm talking about
Okay.
a lifetime plan.
Damn, I had it. Damn, I had him in the bag.
That's the way to begin. We're hand in hand and Glenn Miller's band was a better than before.
Okay, get ready to have a dick of
We
your butt.
all scream for more. And those borders tunes made us dance across the room. It ended all too soon.
You better move that damn phone right here, because I'm fixing to put some pressure on it. Oh, I better not do that shit.
Never be alone. Hurry, don't be late. I can hardly wait. I said to myself, when
That was dumb.
we got dancing in the dark, walking through the park and reminiscing.
Maybe not. Damn.
Friday night, I was late, I was walking home.
That
way
fucking
down to
pissing
the
me
gate.
off.
I was dreaming of the night.
Man, this fucking pissing me off.
Would it turn out right?
Son of a bitch.
Now the years roll on.
Now my turn to be a poor sport.
It's time we hear our favorite song.
I want a goddamn rematch.
Memories come along.
That fucking pisses me off.
All the times we're missing, spending the
One more
hours
game.
reminiscing. Don't be late. I can hardly wait. I said to myself, when we're on, we got dancing in the dark, walking through the park.
Man, that really fucking pisses me off. Oh, you want to swap pores? Let's swap pores, bitch.
Don't be late. I can hardly wait.
Let's swap
I
pores.
said to myself, when we're on, we got dancing in the dark, walking through the park and reminiscing.
Come on, dickhole.
Sorry, I ain't got no money. I'm not trying to be funny, but I left it all at home today. You can call me what you wanna. I ain't giving you $1 this time. I ain't gonna run away. You might knock me down. You might knock me down. But I will get back up again. You can call it how you wanna.
You're not gonna ask up my queen, king of that dead stupid move.
I'm gonna run away this time. This time.
Dumbass.
This time. This time I ain't gonna run away. Not this time. Not this time. Not this time. This time I ain't gonna run away.
Now jack his ass up.
Sorry, I ain't got no money. I'm not trying to be funny, but I left it all at home today. You can call me what you wanna. I ain't giving
Suck my dick.
$1 this time. I ain't gonna
Fucking
run
motherfucker.
away.
Shit.
You might knock me down. You might knock me down.
Suck my dick.
I will get back up again. You can call it how you wanna. I ain't giving you $1 this time. I ain't gonna run away. This time. This time.
Come on, dickhole, and move.
This time I ain't gonna run away. Not this time. Not this time. This time I ain't gonna run. This time. This time I ain't gonna run away.
I better get my damn king to safety. Or else I'm gonna get the dick up my butt.
At 17 we fell in love. High school sweethearts.
Suck my dick,
Love was so
Tony.
brand new.
Motherfucking Tony. Suck my
Took the box
dick.
of man and wife. Forever. For life.
Suck my dick, bitch.
How we made your way. A little patience. The time we pray. Can imagine that this love is through. Feeling the pain, girl, when you lose. It's too hard. Too hard, lady.
Suck my dick,
Gotta run
bitch.
for shelter. Gotta run for shade. It's too hard. Too hard, lady. Gotta go to Zanga. What a mess we made so long ago. You were my love. Oh, my love.
Suck my dick, bitch. Well, it's time Janet has Uzi arms in.
Never took the time
Suck my dick.
and feel the need. Funny how those years go by, changing you, changing me. I remember love's a fever in our hearts, girl, and in
Suck my dick, bitch.
can imagine that this love is through. Feeling the pain, girl, when you lose.
Suck my dick.
It's too hard, lady. Gotta run for shelter, gotta run for shade. It's too hard, lady. Gotta go to Zanga. What a mess we made so long ago. You were my love. Oh, my love.
Now I gotta ask for that fucking pony.
The pain, feel the pain. It's too hard, lady. Gotta run for shelter, gotta run for shade. It's too hard, lady. Gotta go to Zanga. What a mess we made.
Suck my dick, bitch. Suck my dick. Suck my dick.
There was a time
Suck my dick.
when I was so broken hearted. Love was a match.
Suck my dick.
Mine.
Suck my dick, bitch. You're gonna lose one of those rooks. Suck my dick.
All I want is one I can resist. I know all I need to know by the way that I got kissed. I was crying when I met you. Now I'm trying to forget you. Your love is sweet, misery. I was crying just to get you. Now I'm dying 'cause I let you do what you do.
Suck my dick. Suck my
Now
dick.
there's not even breathing room between pleasure and
Suck my dick.
yeah, you cry when you're making love. Must be one and the same. Yeah, turn on me.
Suck my dick, bitch.
I got to tell you one thing. It's been a
You stupid motherfucker.
girl, I gotta say.
Suck my dick.
Honest in crime. You got that certain something.
Suck my dick.
What you give to me takes my breath away. Out on the street, it's a different
Suck my dick.
kiss. If our love goes up in flames,
Suck my dick.
fire I can resist.
I want that damn pony all the way up to the top.
When I met you, now I'm trying to forget you. Your love is sweet, misery. I was crying just to get you. Now I'm dying 'cause I let you do what you do down on me. You know I need your love. You got a hold on me. Long as I got your
You can
love,
kiss that damn pony.
you know
Bye,
that I'll never leave.
bitch.
When I
Suck
want
my
you to
dick.
share my life, I had no doubt in my mind. And it's been you, woman, right down the line.
Suck my hard dick.
I know how
Poor
much I
sport,
lean
bitch.
on you.